Today is day 2 of refeeding after what turned out to be my 6-day water-only fast. Yesterday's video, I covered why it is I had to end what was originally going to be my 7-day fast, why I had to end it on day 6. And if you're interested in learning all about what happened there, day 6-ish is your video. I also covered day 1 of refeeding, which is why there isn't a video dedicated specifically to day 1 of refeeding. After I finished recording that video, I did have one more meal to have. And of course, I still had juice because day 1, you have juice. And instead of going with the same juice that I had used earlier, which consisted of 60% veggies, 40% fruit, I was trying to get closer to the 80% veggies and 20% fruit. And what I ended up with was a 70-30. So I used to juice all the time many years ago, and then I got rid of my juicer, and then luckily was gifted a juicer to be able to do this fast. But in all the years that I did juice, I could not get myself to make a green juice. It looked awful to me. I associated it with wheatgrass because I don't know, people, if you've ever tried wheatgrass, I don't care how good it is for you. It's grass and it smells like grass. And from what I understand, people who've taken shots of it, you burp up grass for like hours. And I just absolutely could not do that because it's just blah, blah. I don't like the smell of fresh cut grass anyway. So yeah, I always associated the green juices with green, you know, the taste of green. But I thought, okay, my palate is supposed to be reset, right? You may like things you never liked before, and truth be told, I'm okay with celery flavor now. And I never was okay with like raw celery flavor before, but in the first juice I had, I was like, I can totally taste that celery and it's fine. So I went ahead and made the green juice that consisted of celery, cucumber, spinach, lemon, and ginger. And I blended it up and it looked like this. And I'm sitting there looking at it like, yeah, that's pretty green. I don't know. So I picked it up and I smelled it. I was like, actually that doesn't smell so bad. Okay. Bottoms up. You know, and so I tried it and it wasn't half bad. I was a little bit surprised, and even especially using a green apple, which is supposed to be less in sugar, it did give just enough sweetness to it. Now, I didn't love it the first sip, but after I took a few swigs of it, it grew on me. And so halfway through the grass, it wasn't grass. Halfway through the glass, I was like, maybe I'll make this again. I don't know. It's not terrible. Maybe if I have it again, maybe it'll grow on me. So I have not yet made it again. But I would make one modification to that recipe for refeeding, especially if it's, you know, day 1 refeeding. I think it asked for about 1 inch of ginger, which is what I put. It was like the, you know, end of the finger, and it was maybe a little tiny bit fatter than my finger. Nah, it was about the same size as, you know, from here to here. And it was a little spicy. So it didn't give me any problems, but as I was drinking it, I was thinking, wow, this is pretty spicy. I kind of hope I don't end up having something happen. So I might either omit the ginger or just cut the ginger in half to make it a little less spicy. But the number one thing I noticed about that juice was it was salty. And that was a little bit of a surprise for me because I had used 2 stalks of celery in the first juice I made. And that had carrot and apple in it. So celery, carrot, apple. And it wasn't overwhelmingly salty. This one, I don't know if it's just because there was far less sweetness in it. If the like the sweetness deadens the saltiness of it, but I just kept thinking, wow, this is really salty. But fortunately, because it wasn't so sweet, like it just worked. It worked, but I think I might also, if I was fresh off a fast, go down to 1 celery stalk, just because I am tasting the saltiness a little bit better. I slept decently, not amazing, not terrible, probably about as well as what I do normally, but my normal sleep isn't like the most amazing sleep I've ever had, but fairly decent, so almost normal, I would say. And when I woke up, I was like, okay, I think I'm feeling all right. Definitely better than the day before, for sure. And so I got up and I weighed myself, and I got on the scale, and it said I was down another 4 ounces, which, is close to half a pound. I was a little surprised by that, because I thought as soon as I started putting any sugar in my body, even though it was all liquid, I thought my glycogen stores would start to build back up enough to where I would not lose weight and start to gain weight. So I was really surprised to find that I still actually lost a little bit. So if you take the 172.1 that I started out on day 1 as, and then take my final weight of 164, I lost just over 8 pounds. And I'm happy with that. I'm hoping that half of that is fat and that I will only gain back about 4 pounds. That's what I'm expecting. But not everything has gone to expectations during this fast. So we will see what happens there. The other thing is, I measured my waist before I started the fast, or on day 1, and my waist was at 36. And then yesterday I measured my waist and it was 35. So I lost an entire inch off just my waist, which confirms for me that the goal I had with this fast, which was to prioritize the mobilization of visceral fat and get it gone, it did. And the way that fasts work beyond the fast, your body's kind of like already in the mode of prioritizing that fat to be lost. It will still maintain some momentum, losing more visceral fat over the coming weeks, as long as I don't go crazy and fall off the wagon with my way of eating. So the first thing I had when I got up yesterday morning, which was our day 2 of refeeding, was this. Oh, how I miss you. Warm morning cup of vegetable broth? Yeah, that's vegetable broth. I have to tell you, I'm really kind of loving this vegetable broth thing. It's a really nice way to start the day. I did add celery to the second time I made it, and so it's got just a little tiny bit of ever so slight saltiness to it. The ginger has a little bit of warmth in it, and it just is soothing as it goes down, and it's really easy to go down. And I'm quite loving it, but we can't maintain this because it's kind of a pain in the butt to make. The coffee and the tea are so much easier to make. So I'm sure after probably tomorrow, I will go back to tea. I've got some fancy flavored black teas and green teas in there. I don't think I'll do the herbal tea. It's not my favorite. But I think I'll go back to tea, and I'm sure I'll end up going back to my coffee at some point. But and the coffee is the easiest, by the way. You just grind the beans, put it in the coffee maker, and 15 minutes later you have coffee. So in my daily life, I'm sure I'll go back there. And I'm perfectly fine with that because I wasn't trying to get off of coffee. I don't actually have any boost from the coffee. There are people who have they metabolize caffeine differently. And apparently I seem to be someone who is completely unaffected by coffee. I mean, I can take caffeine pills and go right to sleep. So, which I tried to take on a drive once up to Oregon in the middle of the night. I was like, I can't. So I, got some caffeine pills and did nothing for me. Whereas, if cameraman looks at coffee, he's like, I'm kind of feeling jittery already. I've got boost. I've got energy to, go out and conquer the world. He and I are not the same in that regard. Before I went to church yesterday, I made another glass of the celery, carrot, apple juice that I made on day one. And it was just as delicious as it was on day one. And it kept me satisfied for all through service and then coming home and enough time for me to make what I had for lunch. Lunch consisted of steamed rainbow carrots and peeled Yukon Gold potatoes. It's really important on day 2 to peel your potatoes because we're trying to get more foods into us, more solid foods into us, but we don't want to overwhelm our systems with fiber because if you do, that can cause all sorts of digestional issues and I think even constipation and whatnot. I don't want any of that. So I chose steamed carrots and potatoes. And the thing is, I always hear steamed vegetables, and what they really mean is zucchini or squash. The problem is, I really don't like zucchini or squash. And so I'm like, I gotta come up with something else. And originally what I wanted to do was have the green beans and edamame and snap peas that I had leading into the fast. But then I realized those are beans, which I love beans. And I can't have them. I can't have them on day 2. So I had to come up with something else, and what I came out with was these. So the plate that I put them on is a fairly small plate. It's not even a full-size dinner plate. And so I took pretty much, not the smallest plates we own, because we have some really little dessert plates, but like pretty much the smallest plate that you would use for appetizers, let's say. And, didn't overload it or anything. And so this is what I had. And I couldn't finish it. I mean, I knew my stomach was going to shrink, but I had no idea it was going to shrink that much because I actually made probably 2 or 3 times as much as what is on my plate. So I guess I'll be eating that for the next few days as well, but at some point I probably will put something tasty on it as well. It wasn't bad. Honestly, I can eat, like, if I were stuck eating just potatoes that are boiled, I'm fine with it. It's not like, ooh, I look super, toward that, but I'm fine with it. And I'm not a lover of steamed carrots, but I do think that there has been some minor shift in my palate. And so the carrots tasted decent. And they were still on the firm side. So steamed mushy carrots just kind of gross me out. So it was pretty good. I would say that I probably had about like maybe a medium-sized potato's worth of potatoes and maybe a third of that carrot because it was a pretty big carrot. So yeah, I thought it was pretty decent, but I did notice a couple of hours later I had just the ever so slight bloating in my belly. It wasn't bad. It wasn't super gassy. It was just like a little discomfort and my stomach was distended just a little bit. So I don't know if that is a normal thing that kind of happens as you start to refeed with like, that could happen with anything you have, or if my choice of potatoes and carrots was not ideal. I'm sure we will never know. For dinner, my plan was to make a soup of onions, garlic, potatoes, tomatoes, cabbage, rosemary, and thyme. And so that's what I did. I first made the broth by chopping 2 heads of garlic in large chunks and adding it to my stock pot. Then I chopped up 2 medium onions into big chunks, 1 red and 1 yellow. I did have a freezer bag ready to capture all of my leftovers so that in the future, I can use them to make the vegetable broth without having to waste perfectly good food to do so. Then I tossed in about a teaspoon of rosemary and thyme. The last thing that I'm adding wasn't on my original list of things to add to my soup. But because I was really trying to get the soup to taste as good as possible, I added a bunch of celery to try to add a little salt into my soup. Then I added about 12 cups of water. Now, my quantities probably look pretty large, and it's because they're pretty large. If you're making this for just yourself, you can use like very small quantities of each. But I am used to cooking for my whole entire family, and I like to have leftovers. So if I have enough leftovers, they sustain us for a few days, or I can put, in case of soups, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll package them up, put them in the freezer, and then on another day, I don't have to put so much effort toward making another soup. So that is what I am doing here. Now I'm gonna let it come to a boil and then simmer for about an hour. Since I wasn't entirely sure if my body was ready to handle the amount of fiber that's in the celery, I thought it was best to remove it. Now I'm not entirely sure why I decided to do this now, because I'm just gonna blend the soup at the end, but I thought I should blend these ingredients up. Next, the tomatoes got sliced into big chunks and the tops got thrown into my freezer bag. Now for the cabbage. I decided not to use a ton of cabbage. I would normally put way more cabbage than this, but I decided to keep it lower because I was unsure whether or not I should be using cruciferous vegetables on day 2 or not. So I thought, well, if I add in a little and I blend it, which is where the whole blending came from, I thought maybe I'll be okay. Last to go in were the potatoes, and again, I peeled them. And then after they were all in and everything was all nicely mixed up, I let it come up to a boil and then simmered it for about 30 minutes. The final step was to blend it all together. Now, I don't know if you've ever worked with an immersion blender, but they are a total game changer. I remember the days of trying to take a hot soup and in batches blend it in the regular blender. And it was just awful. So awful that I refused to do it. So then I got a cheapy immersion blender at Target and it worked okay, but it was not amazing. I mean, it would get gummed up all the time. It didn't chunk things down, pureed enough. And so I had my eye on a Vitamix immersion blender for quite a while, but they're so expensive. And then one Christmas, I was gifted one, which is extremely fortunate for me because if I had not been gifted the immersion blender, I would not have this immersion blender because I don't think that I could convince myself to drop as much money as this blender costs. But if you have the funds and you are someone who likes to make soups or blend things in the pot, I highly recommend this one. So here is my opinion of my soup. It wasn't awful, but it wasn't amazing either. And the biggest reason it wasn't amazinger than it was is salt. Now, after, of which there was none, by the way, only the celery and whatever's in the tomatoes and whatnot. But it wasn't enough to have any sense of completion that needs to happen in a soup by having a little bit of salt in it. Now, I hear so often from the experts that when you do a fast, especially when you do a fast, your palate resets. Especially, you know, I did almost 6 full days. So your palate resets and you can totally taste all of the salt and the sweetness that are in fruits and vegetables. And while I definitely say that I can taste the salt in the celery, that doesn't seem to be extending to all of the other vegetables that they claim, like we make, you know, you'll make good food taste not bad. It still tastes bad to me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, SOS free people. Salt, oil, and sugar in the smallest quantities possible to make something taste okay are absolutely necessary. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying this story that you can completely acclimate and love, like truly enjoy all of the food. So for me, if the choice is between eating the healthy foods with a little something on it that's not ideal or not eating the healthy foods, I'm gonna do what I need to do to make it happen. Now, over the last 3 months, as I've changed my diet, I have noticed that I need less and less salt and sweetness and oil. I do use a little tiny bit of oil here and there. I'm sorry. When I make baked tofu, it's not the same. It is not the same if I don't spray on just a little bit of oil. It just doesn't work. And I love tofu, but I've got to have, it doesn't bake right if I don't do that. So if I'm faced with the option of steel cut oats with or without a little bit of salt in the cooking and a little, I mean, very small, maybe a teaspoon, half a tablespoon of pure maple syrup on top with some berries and nuts and seeds and all that, right? If I have to take that without the salt and the sweet, I'm not eating it. It's disgusting. I make these huge salads with like everything you can think of in your pantry thrown in that's all amazing for you. If I don't have the option to put a tablespoon, I mean, I'm talking a big salad, a tablespoon, which just barely coats the whole salad. Well, mostly the greens. But if I don't have the option of a tablespoon of fancy balsamic vinegar, I'm not eating that huge, very healthy bowl of amazingness. So for me, I've got to put a little. I'm not buying it. That's all I'm saying is I'm not buying it. Now, please understand, I am not advocating for moderation. I think moderation is unachievable. I think moderation is a slippery slope. Moderation takes you right to the place that most of us, me particularly, but I'm sure a lot of people that are interested in fasting and would watch this video, we're coming from a place of moderation didn't work for me and it just led me right back to being fat and unhealthy and feeling terrible and just everything that comes with that. Don't sleep well, can't walk far, you know, whatever it is. So in my mind, the way that I have been doing it and it's working is just using The minimum amount you need to make it taste good. Not, wow, that's the most amazing thing I've ever had. Good. Good to the point where you're not thinking about eating that again sometime in the future and going, it was okay. I don't really want it. You want to say, I am so looking forward to that salad. And can I tell you my plan for tonight on day 3? Well, okay, I'm recording this morning on day 3, but I'm recording for yesterday. Tonight on day 3, my plan is that big salad. It's going to be primarily greens, but I'm putting that balsamic on there. It's going to happen. And I am so looking forward to that because I add that 1 tablespoon per huge bowl of greens and anything else that goes in it. I'm probably put some tomatoes. I don't know what else I can have yet, but we're working on it. That's what helps me to want the healthy foods. And we've got only 1 more day of refeeding to go. See you next time.